What's up, guys? Welcome to the Lax Lounge powered by Lax Locks. This is the first episode. I got one of my old buddies, Shawn Ewert. Welcome in. We're really happy to have you. Hope all is well. How you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on. Excited to be the first official guest of the Lax Lax podcast.
Us Dublin guys, we got to stick together, bro.
Absolutely. That's it.
Ohio Lax over everything.
Slowly. We're growing. We're growing.
I'm gonna get a lot of shit for saying that. Ohio Lax, baby. We're out here. For those who don't know, Shawn Ewert, really incredible, really extensive lacrosse career up to this point. Currently the head coach or currently the assistant coach at Providence University. What you were at, I believe you're at Southern, Florida Southern,
Yep. I was at
um,
Southern the past 2 years. So
past couple years. And I know you started at Bucknell. You were there for 2 years as well, weren't you?
correct. Yep.
Nice. And last but not least,
2021.
dude was a baller, absolute baller at Jacksonville. Shout out to Jax. Your boy was a baller. Used to watch a lot of games, and it was really cool to see my boy going off. One of Dublin's finest right here.
Yeah, man. Let's get this rolling.
Yeah, like we were talking about, what's really cool is the fact that you played at Jacksonville and what got you up to that point. We used to coach elementary school, middle school, high school together. We used to coach lacrosse camps together back in the day. We went to rival high schools in Dublin, Ohio, and but we'd always come together in the summer and coach. And it was cool. Shawn was always like, you were like the best demo guy. Shout out to Mike Caravana and Coach Doug Bartlett. Like they knew you were like the best demo guys at Lacrosse Academy. You would be on every demo, like no matter what.
Oh, they had me working from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. whenever the last session was. They had me grinding, that's for sure. And then those individual sessions, those were grueling as a coach. They'd keep you out there for those extra 30 minutes doing the one-on-one private sessions. So we definitely those kids got their money's worth back in the day, that's for sure.
So man, playing in Jacksonville, you spent a lot of time in Florida. Like, how young was the program when you got there as a freshman?
Yeah, so when I got there in the fall of 2014, we were just entering our fifth season as a program. So still really young. There were it was old enough that there were guys who you had heard about that you didn't personally know, some stories, but it was a young program when I think we were still trying to find our identity. Went through a coaching change after my sophomore year, and that's when Coach Galloway got hired. And obviously, he's done an awesome job there the last, I guess he's going on year 8 now. So seeing the culture that he wanted to bring in when I was a junior there, then some of the success we had my senior year in 2018, to see that kind of come full circle the last few years where they've beaten Duke and really made a name for themselves on a national scale has been really cool to see.
Right, and you were on a team that beat Duke, right? Is that correct?
That was a couple years after I
A couple
graduated,
years after, yeah.
but
Um,
still knowing kids on that team, kids who were freshmen when I was a senior, to see them continue to take the program to new heights was something pretty cool.
he really laid the foundation there. He's in the record books at Jacksonville offensive production, which is probably why he ended up becoming an offensive coordinator. Tell us a little bit about that. You went straight out of college, you went to Bucknell. You did it was like a grad assistant. Was that what you did there? What?
Yeah, so my first year out after graduation, I actually went back to Jacksonville and worked as a grad assistant at Jacksonville University, got my MBA during that 2019 season. I think it was partially I didn't fully want know what I wanted to do when I was wrapping up undergrad and approached Coach Galloway and said, "Hey, I think I want to get into coaching. What would this kind of look like from a grad assistant standpoint?" So got some awesome experience there, and I quickly realized that to really make that career happen at the Division 1 level, the next step was like finding a program to be a volunteer at. And I didn't have a ton of knowledge or guidance on how to go about it. It was just sending blind emails to staffs all over the country. Said, introduce myself, give them a little background, said, "Hey, I'm trying to get into coaching. Let me know if there's an opportunity." And Coach Frank Federaca at Bucknell reached back out. I've got an interview set up, and I think me and him hit it off right away, and had an awesome experience there in Lewisburg for 2 years. Unfortunately, it was probably two of the tougher years to be in coaching, especially my first 2 years. And 2020 when we had the shutdown, and then again in 2021 where we had that just shortened partial season where I think we ended up getting 8 or 9 games in, but never got a full season there. But after those 2 years, felt like after meeting with Coach Fed, felt like I'd had got the experience that I needed there to go on and find a full-time paid assistant job, and a couple openings that I was excited about, and ended up being fortunate enough to find a spot at Florida Southern where I actually had a prior connection. My offensive coordinator, Tyler Grinelli, at Jacksonville my senior year, he had previously worked at Florida Southern. So I had a nice little plug there and ended up working out and had an incredible 2 years there where we had reached a new level of success. We had upsets over the #1 team in Lemoyne and then making it to our conference championship season, conference championship, excuse me, 2 consecutive seasons. That was really cool and really wasn't looking to move on. I was really committed to wanting to stay there and, you know, try to finish that out and win a championship there. And got a phone call from Coach Benson this summer out of the blue. And knowing his background, the level of success he's had as a player, not only just as a player, but as a coach. As growing up, you always saw Hopkins and Maryland on TV. And just knowing who he was and his background, I knew that wasn't an opportunity that I could pass up working for him.
That's awesome, man. And especially coming out of that, most people don't really associate with being a hotbed of lacrosse in Florida. And the cool thing is like Jacksonville and Southern Florida, they're not very close, right? So
Probably 3.5, 4 hours apart. So yeah, pretty big gap of the two areas I live, but it felt like I got a pretty good feel for the Florida lacrosse landscape. And I think it's super similar to the landscape that we grew up into in Ohio, and it continues to grow. So it's been really cool to see.
and like that's what I was gonna ask you because at Laxlocks we're all about growth of the game. We want to bring in as many different fans from other sports as we can, and to come into a landscape like that's, let's be real, primarily baseball heavy state. A lot of baseball players there. What was like that growth? What was like? What were the fans like? Were you guys getting fans at Jacksonville? Were you getting townies coming into games? Like what?
My first couple years there, crowds were pretty scarce. So it was a lot of parents. I get a couple of kids here and there, but there wasn't a ton of engagement. And I think it was a little disappointing, right? But part of it comes with winning. And that was a big initiative when Coach Galloway got hired was we got to get engaged in the community because there's good kids around here. Ponte Vedra High School, that whole community is really engaged in lacrosse. Actually, fellow Dublin native Chris Polanski is the head coach down there right now. So another plug back to Ohio. But yeah, there's a huge growing community, and I think the more alums that stayed in the area and continue to start to become high school head coaches in different communities and start the grassroots programs, we started to see more kids coming to our games. Which was awesome. We had a couple bigger games. We played Navy my senior year at home. There's a huge naval base in Jacksonville. So there were a lot of Navy fans there, which that was an awesome being able to beat them up pretty good. And then we had Ohio State down there when they were coming off their Final Four appearance. That was another awesome crowd. So I know they've done a great job getting more interest and engagement from the local community. And I think that'll only continue to grow as the sport continues to grow at new heights.
Like I said, you mentioned Florida being similar to Ohio, where we're from, and the lacrosse landscape being very similar. So it's a true testament to what you guys have come out of Dublin, what you coaches have come out of Dublin. You yourself, Connor Busick, they came from the same school. It's really cool that you guys have really taken that next step and are giving back to the game in that way. That's really awesome. Coming into, you basically went from, you proved yourself in a D1 atmosphere, right? At Bucknell, which you're already at that level, but playing wise, and then coming into the Division II atmosphere at Florida Southern. What was that? Walk us like, what was that transition like for you? What were some of the differences that you saw or that you went through?
Yeah, it's a great question. First and foremost, I think the one thing that stood out to me the most when I first got down to Florida Southern was actually the amount of talent. I think I'd always looked down at Division II lacrosse for whatever reason. In the Midwest, there's not a lot of Division II teams, or there weren't when we were in high school, right? There were the Division I teams, and then a lot of local kids, if they went Division III, were going to Ohio Wesleyan, Denison, Wittenberg, some of these schools.
Stevenson.
Stevenson, yep, had to get that in there. Those were the schools that you were aware of. And the SSC being a younger conference, I know there's been more and more kids from Columbus actually going down there. That was something that we saw a lot in recruiting, where recruiting a lot of Midwest kids because they were attracted to, for one reason or another, I could play Division III in the Midwest, or I could go play Division II lacrosse in Florida.
And stay
Uh,
warm.
exactly. And exactly. And went up and scrimmaged Jacksonville. We had scrimmaged Mercer. So we were selling that big time atmosphere of we're going to try to compete with the big boys. And we saw that, the amount of Division I transfers, there's really talented players all across Division II. So I think it's a really slept on division. It doesn't get the same kind of national attention that obviously Division I has, or even Division III. It's just being more storied programs in the Division III program that get that national coverage.
And like you guys were no slouch at Florida Southern, man. You came in there, and I believe you were like the offensive coordinator. You're the OC. Like you guys came in there and were crushing. Your first season there, you guys, I think you guys are ranked like sixth or seventh in Division II in scoring, eighth in assists per game, points per game. I think you guys were like seventh. You guys were really humming, man. What kind of approach did you take to developing these players?
Yeah, I think part of it has to go with the way I guess I grew up watching the game and wanting to play the game. And that was always at a kind of a free flowing, fast tempo. And if you want to play that style, it all starts with stick work, right? So I'm a huge guy on fundamentals. I always told my players, like, we want to be the best throwing and catching team in the country. Because if you do that better than everyone else, a lot of things take care of itself. I definitely had some guys who probably wish like we played more in practice, or you just got to shoot more balls during practice. I was so big on stick work, especially throughout the fall. That was a big part of our fall development, was obviously installation of what we wanted to do and offenses we wanted to run. But so much of it is just keying in on the basics and throwing and catching and being solid shooters. That was a big thing. Like, we want to limit turnovers, and I want guys who are shooting over 33%. So if you did those, if you didn't turn the ball over and you shot the ball, you probably found your way onto the field. And we definitely try to play a fun style of lacrosse, and that translated with the amount of goals we were scoring.
Dude, you're talking about individual shooting over 33%?
Yep.
Wow, that's incredible, man.
Yep. That was a benchmark for our guys. We wanted guys shooting over 30%. So
That's money. I love that. That's huge. And honestly, Shawn, you like made fundamentals look so steezy. Like your boy was looking so smooth with the fundamentals. And that's what wins games. And we're seeing that at the Division I level. We're seeing that passing, catching, not turning the ball over, moving the ball quickly, right, quick release. That's what's winning games, it seems like, in Division I right now. That's awesome, man. And going back to your days in Jacksonville, I know I've been seeing it all over the place. Everybody, I was in DC for the PLL, the sixes. I was there, and I ran into a few Jacksonville guys and alumni, and they were talking about. Of course, they mentioned you. Of course, they were like, the alumni, we're really strong. We stick together. It's a really cool thing. Like you said, you came there like fifth year into the program, fourth or fifth year in the program. Is that really a tight knit community? Are you sticking with those guys? You guys talk a lot. How's that?
yeah, obviously the guys who are in my class were super tight. Talk to handful of them every single week. Beyond that, I think one thing that's cool with it being a younger alumni base is we're all similar in age. That may be varying, where my dad playing at Ohio State, like, he graduated in the 80s. He's not engaged with kids who graduated in the last 5 years. He knows a couple of them who maybe graduated and stayed in the Columbus area and are now coaching. It's cool to have a large alumni base, and we'll be there one day, right? But I think having that smaller, tight-knit alumni base is pretty cool, where everyone knows everyone. I know a lot of guys, when they graduate, end up not leaving. So I have a lot of buddies who still live down at the beach in Florida.
Why would you, man? Like, how many boat days? How many boat days did you guys
Moved to,
there?
moved to beautiful Providence, Rhode Island. That's why.
That's it.
That's so good. Looking forward to the great New England summers coming here around the corner.
And stepping into kind of where you're at now, currently, I've watched a lot of Providence games, and it's you guys are an awesome team to watch. I really enjoy watching you guys play. That Stony Brook dub was massive. That was sick. What was really cool is the support you had from your fans. It was a big home game for you guys. Bryant was preseason ranked, whatever. They're expected to do a lot this year, and you guys just came out and you really took it to those guys a little bit. But what's that atmosphere like at Providence for lacrosse games? Like, what is it free? Is it free for people to go to
Yep.
games?
Yeah, it's free admission, right? We don't ticket games. Anyone who wants to come, anyone in the area, and it's free admission. So I think Bryant atmosphere being one of our first home games of the year uh, was a pretty awesome atmosphere, right? It was, beautiful day out. Bryant being just up the road about 8-10 miles in Smithfield. I know they bust down some of their students, so created a pretty rowdy atmosphere where um, the whole stands were pretty much full. So to see that kind of support from not only our students, but theirs as well, made for a really fun day. And what was kind of the Ocean State rivalry game between us, Bryant, and Brown, all battle for the Ocean State Cup each year. We'll have to see what happens when Brown plays Bryant this year. I know we still got a shot. We still got a shot depending on how some things shake out in that game. But from a crowd atmosphere, we've been pretty lucky. I know we want to continue to get the community engaged, but you see it with some of our other sports as well. If you ever see a Providence basketball game, it's known as one of the rowdiest years in all of college basketball. Providence hockey gets awesome attendance with some of their games against BU, BC, some of these other New England teams. So hopefully continue to keep things moving along here and the more success, hopefully we continue to get more and more students out of our games as well as the local community.
That's awesome, man. That's really incredible. And watching those games, it seemed like you guys had a ton of rowdy fans. Like, I didn't know the atmosphere was like that, but it really is a storied program, and they've been around for a
Mhm.
long time, since the 80s, I believe. It does make sense, but what's really cool is that you guys are growing the game there too. The fact that you're having free admissions to games, I think, is a real game changer. I don't think that many schools across the country are doing that. I know we probably even in Division 3 when I played, shit, we weren't having free admissions, and it's we probably should have.
Probably get a few more students.
But we probably should have. But no, man, that's really cool. And you guys talking about Brown, you guys did get that Brown dub. That was a huge win for you guys as well. And what's really cool is, moving forward, there's a lot of winnable games. There's a lot of winnable games at home that you guys have. I know St. Joe's is the next one, right? Like you guys play them Saturday.
Yep. Yeah, we play them this Saturday, and they're a really good team. They're just coming off a win against Penn, and a couple weeks ago we saw Penn beat Duke, right? It's one of those things where any team can win any game, but we're gonna have our hands full with them, and we're gonna have to play really sharp on Saturday to get a win.
Do you feel like you guys have an advantage in front of a crowd like you guys have at the stadium there?
I don't know how much of an advantage we have from a home crowd versus an away crowd. I think maybe the bigger advantage is maybe just more of a routine where our guys are coming into their facility as opposed to maybe waking up in a hotel and you got to bus over to a stadium that maybe you haven't practiced in or you guys haven't seen before, and you're working on logistics of what are we eating for breakfast and this and that. There can maybe be more distractions, but there's also an extent where you could say the same thing at home, where all the parents are in town Friday night, they're all taking their kids out to get dinner and talking about the game, and you're always managing distractions, I think. But I think from a sense of comfortability and routine, I do think there can be an advantage of playing games at home.
Yeah, and a lot of these games coming up, St. Joe's, I feel like the toughest games remaining in your schedule, St. Joe's, Georgetown, Denver, having those teams at home. From our perspective, I think that puts you at a little bit of an advantage, and we'd love to see you get those things done. But so you're coming into conference play. You guys have not had an easy schedule. You guys have had a grueling schedule. Shout out to Coach Benson for for putting you guys through the gauntlet early. But as we've seen from teams like St. Joe's who you're getting ready to play, they had the same deal. Being battle tested coming into conference play, probably a good thing. But what are you seeing in practice? Your guys getting a little more excited, or practice is getting amped up? Are they getting a little more competitive? These guys getting rowdy?
Yeah, I think anytime you start to get close to conference play, the guys start to get a little antsy. Not that there isn't the same level of intensity for the out of conference games, because I think you try to maintain that same level of focus every week, but just things are different when you get into conference play. You start playing guys who are seniors have played against for 3, 4 years now. So there's a little different little edge of knowing your opponents a little bit better as opposed to maybe playing a team for the first time ever. So I know our guys are super excited. And the Big East, we certainly have our hands full. There's no easy games in our conference. So I know we're really excited to get things going here in a week with Georgetown come to town.
Yeah, man, we're really looking forward to that one. Don't want to look sit past St. Joe's. We're definitely going to have that game tuned up on Lax Locks. We're excited about that one. Really think you guys have a chance to get that one done. But going into the changes in D1 since you've been there, I don't know if this has really played a role into it, but have you seen any sort of difference across the Division 1 landscape as far as like with NIL is concerned? Has it changed recruiting? NIL, has it really changed anything for you guys?
For us personally, not really. I don't think it's something that I think it's something that we look at and evaluate. I don't think at this point currently it's something that we're looking too into as far as recruiting. I think if we were to go that route, I think a lot of schools as well are looking at the grad transfers. The NIL thing is such a tricky landscape to navigate, right? Where you're looking at paying a high school senior where you have no idea where they're going to pan out to be.
Yeah.
Um, there's no obvious recruiting method to knowing kids are going to be this or that in college. I think a lot of schools look at the NIL landscape as they look to the transfer portal and more known commodities from what we're hearing and seeing around the country.
And like you're the recruiting guru, man. Like you're good at that. Has obviously the transfer portal has changed the game, right? You're talking a lot about grad transfers as long as they're not playing another sport. That is, are you really, is that something you're really looking at now more than I don't want to say more than, but you're probably putting a lot of focus into the transfer portal now. Is it necessary?
Yeah, I think you always want to build the core of your team through high school recruiting. I think recruiting is the lifeblood of any program. You're only going to be as good as the players that you're bringing in. But obviously, you look to the portal as a way to maybe fill some needs immediately. Because sometimes you're looking at a high school recruit and they're not going to be there for 16, 18 months from when you're watching them, and you can hit the portal and a kid could be there the next semester. So I think you look at it more for a landscape of, hey, we need to fill a position right now. Maybe we can go find an attackman or a defenseman or a goalie or whatever the case may be. I know there's programs that are much more aggressive than others in the transfer portal, but it's certainly made things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I honestly I feel like it's other sports it's tough to watch sometimes, but in lacrosse, I think it's very interesting the dynamic that some of these fifth year seniors can bring to a team. We're looking at a team like, for example, Ohio State, who's brought in some guys, one of their leading scorers from Cleveland State, is just out here balling. Other teams that have players like that, I think it's really great. But going back to recruiting, we played in all of these club tournaments and stuff in the summer growing up, but I don't even know if a lot of these exist anymore, but what are some of your favorite tournaments to go recruit now? You've been in the game for a while, whether it's from an amenities standpoint or from talent.
Yeah.
Let's start with talent. Like talent, what are your favorites?
Oh man, there's a lot that you hit. I think you look at some of the showcases, whether it's like something like Maverick Showtime or Main Stage. I know those are some of the big ones. Some of the team tournaments, obviously, you look at like things like Crab Feast and Naptown, NLF. There's really so many events now. It can be daunting to navigate as a staff, but I think we're fortunate to have when Providence added the third full-time assistant for me to be able to come up here and join, now having four guys on staff to be able to spread out and scour the country at different events will certainly make life a little bit easier.
Good, man. That's awesome. Now, from an amenities perspective, now that we got the talent, like where are your favorite places to go and recruit?
Oh, I always joke there's nowhere hotter than Baltimore in the summer, but that seems to be where all the events are. The IMLCA Coaches Convention, they run a tournament down in Orlando in December. and they do a good job taking care of the coaches. And we've seen that kind of become a premier fall recruiting event from a talent perspective, and just being down at the Omni Resort in Orlando.
There you
That's always nice to get down to Florida in December and be able to watch some really high level lacrosse. And it's a culmination of that fall recruiting period where, some of the events up here in the Northeast and New England can start to get pretty cold.
Yeah. Rhode Island's pretty cold this time of year too, right?
We're warming up. We're warming up.
We're warming up, baby. Just in time for conference play. Love that. And like one of the things, man, we get a lot of kids on Lax Locks. We get a lot of kids coming through social media, excited about the game, excited about the next level. We have guys that they come into my DMs, whether they're committed, looking to play, looking for advice. And what are you really looking for right now? And you're a Big East school, right? So this is not small potatoes lacrosse. This is big time lacrosse. What is a Big East school like Providence? What are you looking for in a Division I player?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I don't think there's ever one specific recipe in a kid. There's so many different variables, whether it's a position. Yeah, you might look at different things from an attackman versus midfield, but you're looking for kids who are, have great IQs, great skills, passionate about the game. That's a big one. We want to recruit kids to Providence that love lacrosse, that they're waking up in the morning, they're thinking about lacrosse and how they're going to get better each and every day. Yeah, I think those are some of the main things that we're looking for in a competitive drive, right? Guys who, just want to win, right? Guys who are competitive to be the best version of themselves and then bring out the best version of their teammates as well. And those are tough things to evaluate at summer events. You get a little bit of a feel for it watching them play, but I think you get a better feel for it through your conversations with kids and the club coaches and their high school coaches, getting to really find out who these young men are. It's exciting when they decide that they want to be a part of your program.
Thanks, man. That's awesome, man. We appreciate your time. I know we mentioned kind of Providence being a storied basketball program. Shout out to Ed Cooley, who's now gone. Man,
Oh
it's
man,
weird. It's weird not seeing the Friars in the tournament right now.
that was a tough weekend. We felt like the Friars got snubbed a little bit, but that's for the selection committee to sort out. But yeah, basketball season around here was definitely pretty exciting.
I absolutely think you guys got snubbed. You got a fresh new coach in there that's really a young guy who's really done a great job motivating the guys, getting them to play at their best. Watch them throughout the season too, and they're great. Like, what is the kind of the atmosphere as far as like supporting other programs? You guys obviously you're in season with basketball, but do you see other programs come out and support the team? Are you guys going out and supporting other teams? What's that kind of look like at Providence?
Yeah, I think a lot of the student athletes are all really supportive of one another. Obviously, you look at something like basketball kind of being the big ticket item where I think a lot of kids are excited to go to those games. Our locker room and facility is housed right in the hockey rink. So we're able to get our eyes on quite a few of those games. I know our guys went out to a bunch of soccer games in the fall, both the men's and women's team having good seasons this year. So yeah, I think the engagement from student athletes with one another, supporting each other is really cool up here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Sometimes you got to keep those lacrosse guys away from the hockey guys, though. That could be some trouble.
So yeah, I think they get along pretty well.
Shawn, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on and doing this. First episode of Lax Locks. Had to keep it local, had to keep it Dublin lacrosse, had to keep it Ohio lacrosse. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time on Lax Lounge, powered by Lax Locks. And thanks, Shawn. Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you.